à chacun.
Good afternoon to one and all.
Donc, je commence en français, mais
I'll begin in French, but let me point out that because we are being listened to online, we wanted this information session to be as transparent as possible and with the widest possible audience. In the spirit of the way the ACP Group and European Commission see the work we are doing, we wanted to make information available as widely as possible so that the beneficiaries can be in the know. I welcome the fact that there are many ambassadors here from our member states and also representatives from the civil society, partners with whom we have a number of projects. That's a good omen, because in parallel with our member states, we also need the NSAs, the non-state actors, who are the recipients of the capacity we want to build in our countries. It's a capacity building program, and we want that capacity to remain in our countries. We want them to be well equipped, particularly when in October we shall be entering a new phase as regards the economic partnership agreements, or as we move towards integration in the regional economic communities, particularly as regards trade cooperation. Let me also welcome the European Commission to our meeting, head of unit, responsible for the private sector and the trade in DevCo, Mr. Antti Kaunen, with whom we have been working zealously to put the program in place, and we cooperate closely with him and his team, together with our team. Of course, we have almost the entire team from the TradeComII program. As you know, this team was set up in order to back up the efforts being made by the group and the member states, help the Secretariat, because the Secretariat doesn't obviously have the capacity to do everything. So we obviously depend on people to assist us. So apart from the technical assistance contracts, which have been in force for a few months, and the initial results will be coming out soon, we also launched a call for proposals, and we hope to have enough in terms of quantity and quality replies which would reflect what our countries want to do over and beyond the strict calendar for technical assistance. The technical assistance only lasts a few weeks, sometimes a few days or a few months, but what we want through the proposals is to support countries and actors in periods of time which can go beyond a few years in order to make the project effective. I'll not go on too long about this. I was just painting the picture and expressing our wish to move this forward. But maybe I can now turn to my colleague in the European Commission to say a few words before we hand over the floor to Mr. Ndieshibola, the head of the PMU. Mr. Lambisa would perhaps supplement, make a few words, say a few words, etc. So, Antti, you have the floor.
Merci, Vivanu. Merci.
Thank you, Vivanu. I'll speak in English.
So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to see so many of you. I think it's a wonderful omen for this exercise that you are so many here. I think Vivanu, with whom we work very, very closely on this, but on so many other issues very exhaustively, I think already laid the ground for this event, the purpose of which is to inform you about the details of what we try to achieve. And I'd just like to say that it's a very timely effort because, well, we are moving in this agenda. Politically, we are moving on the IPAS agenda. We are moving to an implementation phase in many countries. If you look at the multilateral track, the WTO agreements, trade facilitation issues, the focus on LDCs is getting much more traction. We are looking, if you look at the EU policies, we are looking very closely at how we can move to an agenda that emphasizes investments, in particular inclusiveness. If you look at the external investment plan that we have just come out with in 2 weeks ago, and so forth, trade policy, we are looking at the Aid for Trade review. So there's a lot going on in this area, and therefore this call is an opportunity for very unique collaboration. We can transfer knowledge between the ACP partners on the ground, the EU, the Secretariat here, all players. The focus being on South-South, but also North-South partnerships. It's a significant size. The grants between 1 and 3 million are big ones, and of course we hope that these can be used for very sustainable interventions. And just to say that to come to this point is a fruit of very long and good cooperation between the ACP and the EC. So I'd really like to thank already at this stage those involved parties, particularly Ivanu, your team, and ACP Secretariat, and also the whole TradeCom team for all the preparatory work involved. So with this, I think it's we can kick off and ask our colleagues to go into the closer presentation of the program. So thank you very much.
So, Monsieur Ndjishibola, si vous voulez bien.
Mr. Ndjishibola, would you like to outline the program and the details on the call for proposals? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank you for the brief introduction and the welcome of all the participants here in the meeting today. I think we are quite impressed that we have a good attendance to this afternoon. And I also thank you, Mr. Kahunen, for a very good introduction, quite brief, but also to the point that emphasizing the cooperation and also emphasizing the opportunities ahead of us to be able to implement the agreements that we have concluded all around between the EPAs and the regions and the European Commission, but also at the WTO, and also those that are still under negotiation that might unfold in the future. So this call for proposal, which we are discussing this afternoon, is a very useful instrument that can help us as the ACP member states, together with our partners in the European Union, to be able to fulfill and meet the challenges and the opportunities that are ahead of us. Our presentation will be based on 2 documents. That is the call for proposal, documents that in particular the guidelines, which we have distributed the guidelines to all the members who are in attendance today, but also the application form. I invite my colleague who will go through those basic instruments and the elements that will help us to have further discussions this afternoon and come up with a clear understanding of the opportunities ahead of us. Thank you very much, my colleague.
Good afternoon. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity that is given to us to present you this call for proposals. I hope that the technicians in this room will help us, especially because I hope that I will save you the image that is there, my face. and we would switch for a PowerPoint presentation that I have with me. It has been circulated among our colleagues on the table, this PowerPoint presentation. You have it in English and in French. The presentation will be done in English. So this information session is a session that was foreseen in the guidelines for applicants. I see some joy in some of your faces. I'm very, very happy that you now don't have my face. Okay. So we are presenting here the call for proposals, and we will present the key elements that one can find in the guidelines for the grant applicants. And mostly we will go through the objectives, the specific objectives of this grant. We will go through the financing possibilities, as well as review some key points on eligibility applicable to whoever would like to submit a proposal. So the objectives and priorities of this call for proposals can be read here, and it's to build the capacities of the ACP trade support institutions in the delivery of trade research and training actions at national and regional level, thus providing capacity to address key trade issues. So this is really the specific objective that you can find in the guidelines for grant applicants at 1.2. All along our presentation, we will be referring to these guidelines that you can find on the website, and we will go together later on to the website of the European Commission, actually through the one of the ACP Secretariat, and find all these documents. Nevertheless, the specific objectives for this call for proposal is here stated. Within the specific objectives, there are some priorities that have been discussed and provided by the ACP Secretariat and the European Commission, of course. And the priorities are here stated, meaning that grants applicants should consider these as the priorities within this exercise. Support activities and actions of the ACP trade-related capacity building organization for implementing of the EPA and WTO agreements. Support trade-related training and research activities in ACP countries. Support trade-related programs of ACP business associations in the area of trade, and support network activities of trade-related think tanks and similar organizations. Those are the key priorities that we have. Funding, very important issue. Please consider that the indicative amount of this call for proposal is 14.4 million euros. The individual amount of the grants should be a minimum 1 million euros and a maximum of 3 million euros. This is the grant to be awarded, the funds to be made available to the implementation of a grant from this program. The maximum percentage of the financing of this project is 80%. Please note, this is a maximum percentage. It's not a minimum percentage, the maximum percentage. And the balance, would an applicant request 80%, the balance, the 20%, has to be financed by other sources of funding than the EU funds, meaning the EDF, European Development Fund, or the EU budget lines. Concerning the eligibility of applicants, you can find this stated more in detail in 2.1.1 of the guidelines. These guidelines, I recall, have been distributed in the beginning of this session. Applicants, they have to be a legal person, be non-profit making, although it's clearly stated that it can be a profit-making legal person, but not making a profit as a result of the implementation of this specific action. Then we have the criteria, another set of criteria, which is this legal person be established in a member state of the ACP group or a member state of the EU or any eligible country. These eligible countries are mentioned as well in the website of the European Commission. One can find exactly who are the eligible countries. It's very important to ensure that applicants are directly responsible for the preparation and management of the action with co-applicants and eventually affiliated entities, and not acting merely as an intermediary. Additionally, under this call for proposal, we will have to evaluate and review that the legal entities or the legal person have to demonstrate having carried out activities in the field of trade-related assistance. We are presenting you here the main points. More details can be found in the guidelines for applicants. Additionally, concerning eligibility of applicants, one has to consider that applicants who are not established in an ACP country must have at least one partner established in one of the ACP countries. Concerning the eligibility of the actions, aside all other elements that can be found in the guidelines, we thought it would be important to highlight that the activities should be of a minimum of 18 months and a maximum of 24 months. One or more of the ACP countries should be, of course, the beneficiaries, final beneficiaries of these actions. Concerning the timeline of this call for proposal, well, we have the deadline for the submission of concept notes, which is on the 8th of November 2016 at 4 o'clock. And as well, there is the possibility to request for clarifications. The request of clarification coming from interested applicants should arrive to our offices by the 18th of October 2016, which is actually 21 days before the deadline for submission of the concept notes. The contracting authority, with the support of the PMU, the Project Management Unit for the TradeCom, we will provide clarification the latest by the 28th of October 2016, and this can be found on the web site of the European Commission, where all the documents of this call for proposal are or have been already published by some week ago. Sorry. You have here a timeline of this call for proposal, and I would like you to consider that there are two main steps. There's a first step where only concept notes will be reviewed and evaluated. And based on the evaluation of these concept notes, a certain number of applicants will be invited to provide a full application. And this is what is called the step 2. This being said, this on the 19th of September was published on the website of the European Commission, as well as a link on the website of the ACP Secretariat for the guidelines as well as its annexes. On the 8th of November is the deadline for submission of the concept notes. The evaluation will happen after that date, and we consider that by the 13th of December, we would be able to invite shortlisted entities to submit a full application. But at this stage, please consider that we are in step 1, and what we have to do at this stage is the concept notes. And for the concept note, I would like to go through the website and together with you find our way for the call for proposals. In this call for proposals, you have the guidelines and you have a number of annexes. And the idea here is to show you, believe it or not, how easy it can be. Nobody believes me, huh? Okay, so here is my homepage. Well, sorry, usually it's Ronaldo that shows. And again, I have a technical, well, I wonder if I will be able to. Okay, you see, usually it's Ronaldo that appears here, but not this time. So, well, I will not use Google. I will just write here ACP Secretariat. And this is what you would do in your own computer. And, well, I have an easy life because I'm looking in my screen. I hope you are able to read that far. But if I go to the website of the ACP Secretariat, here we go. This is the front page. And if you scroll, here, where is it? Announcements. In the announcements, we have here a call for proposals, for the TradeComII. If we click on this page, we are arriving at this page, not this one. Actually, what I think is that perhaps there is an overload on the web, meaning that everyone here is using his smartphone. But anyway, I'm back. We are back online. So as soon as we click on the link, this is the page that would appear. We are here in French, and well, you can choose the language here on the side, but it won't change much. Here, so it's call for proposals, procurement notice, and you have here the references of this call for proposals. It's very small, and I will try to zoom. Okay. So you have here the reference. It's very small, sorry for that, but you have here the reference of the tender, that the call for proposal we are speaking, the date of publication, which is the 19th of September, the status, it's open until the 8th of November. So meaning this is the deadline for submission of the first step, the concept notes, the program, as well as the budget. Now, you have here a list of documents that might look a bit frightened, but they are not. And why aren't they? Because you have the guidelines. I have my my pointer or my finger on the guidelines. You have it. All these documents here are in English, and just if you scroll, all the documents are translated here in French as well. So here you have the guidelines that we will go through in a few moments. And then you have the grant application form. You have the budget, which is Annex B. You have the logical framework, legal entity. Legal entity, there are 3 legal entities. So it's sheets differently. They are different. When you see your status as an organization, you have the financial identification form as well as the standard grant contract, tax regime, simplified customs options, cost options. Sorry. The standard contract is for every organization to know and to be aware of how or what they have. They will be bound to when implementing this grant. So all the documents that are here, we are speaking about the guidelines plus a number of 10 annexes. Well, we can say 8 because there are a couple of them here that are the legal entity. The last one is the full tender file in English. It's a zipped file. When opening the guidelines, we have it here. Here they are, the guidelines. And these are the instructions as an entity we have to follow so as to be in a position to propose, to submit our proposal. These guidelines are particular for this grant call for proposals. And it is composed of a bit about the TradeComII, not only the background, but as well as the objectives and priorities of the program itself, the financial allocation as well. Concerning the call for proposals itself, it's quite small. We can concerning the call for proposals itself, you will see that you have the eligibility criteria. You can follow this on the documents that were distributed to you. You have the eligibility criteria, and you have as well how to apply and the procedures to follow. How are we going to be evaluated, and submission of supporting document for provision selected applicants. This is already for the next step, the step 2. We would like to concentrate ourselves on the first step, which is the presentation of a concept note. And the concept note applications must be submitted in accordance with the concept note instructions in the grant application form annexed to these guidelines, Annex A. Well, what would I do? I would come to Annex A. And here we have here we have the grant application form. This document is roughly 45 pages in English and 50 pages in French. You all, I hope, have received a copy of the grant application form. You will be probably surprised because you do not have with you 45 pages or 50 pages. We have only copied the needed pages for this first step, which is the concept note. Of course, you can have all the document. Please ask us. We will provide you. Or better, go to the website, as I showed you, to download it. So if you follow me on the documents you have with you, you will see that for this first step, concept note, we are asking you to provide this first page, duly filled in, with the title of the action, the location of the action, the name of the lead applicant, as well as the nationality of the lead applicant. This bit here about dossier number and so on, please leave it as it is. It will be on our side that we are going to fill it in. In the European Aid ID, this really concerns a PADOR registration. Now, in this call for proposals, the contracting authority is the ACP Secretariat, so we are not necessarily relying on the PADOR database, let's say. PADOR is a database of the European Commission where organizations register, where organizations update their data regularly. And so these are contact points so that we can reach you if needed, especially if you are pre-selected. And this second bit, it's a content, but it's a content of the whole document that we call the grant application form. What we are interested on is the part A of the concept note, as we just read earlier. This concept note is composed of, we'll go straight to it. We have here some instructions that will help you and will guide you through the filling in this concept note. Summary of the action. Quite important is requested contribution should be here. I remind you, please let me remind you that we set that this contribution would be minimum 1 million, maximum 3 million euros. And again, we have to put here as well the percentage of this contribution. The contribution of the European Union funds throughout this TradeComII program should not exceed 80%, maximum 80%. The objectives of the actions should be stated just on this box, as well as the target group, the final beneficiary, and the estimated results, as well as the main activities. And if you see, we are required to do a description of the action, but it should not exceed a maximum of 1 page. And this is quite an important issue because all in all, you will see that the concept note is of actually 5 pages, no more than 5 pages. But nevertheless, those 5 pages have to be very, very well thought. Description of the action should not exceed 1 page, should give the background to the preparation of the action, the objectives should be duly explained, describe the key stakeholders, groups, brief outline of the type of activities proposed, as well as outline the broad time frame of the action. within the time frame of the action, do not forget the maximum and minimum as stated earlier. The action should take at least minimum 18 months, maximum 24 months or 28. Okay. The relevance of the action. Well, you have to stick to 3 pages. And the relevance of the action, we would expect to read about the relevance of the objectives, the sectors, the team, specific priorities of this call for proposals. Relevance to the particular needs and constraints of the target country group, etc. And as well describe and define the target group and final beneficiaries, their needs and constraints, and state how the action will address these needs. Particular the added value elements of your action. All in all, this should not exceed 3 pages. Has as well to be provided this checklist of the concept note, where the beneficiaries should state here the publication reference, the title of the call, and the budget line. In our case, it's not a budget line, it's the code of this project. So we have here this checklist. We have again the administrative data, who we are, and a second page of this text checklist that will guide us to make sure that as an entity submitting to this call for proposal, we have not missed any of the key elements. This is the instructions for the concept note have been followed, yes or no. The declaration by the lead applicant has been filled in and signed. What is this declaration? It will be on the next page we'll find this declaration. And this declaration would actually state that the lead applicant is not in any of the any bankruptcy or any other of these situations. We'll come to that just later on. The proposal is typed and in English or in French, which are the languages of this call for proposals. Where more than one language is allowed, the proposal is drafted in the language most commonly used by the target population in the country in which the action will take place. We have to have 3 originals, one original and 3 copies, as well as an electronic version of the concept note. Concerning the eligibility, the action will be implemented in an eligible country and in the minimum required number of eligible countries. The duration between 18 and 24 months. The requested contribution is between the minimum and maximum, the 1 million or the 3 million. This checklist and the declaration by the lead applicant have been filled in and set with the concept note. This checklist will help us, or will help you, as beneficiaries submitting this concept note, to make sure that all documents and all elements have been taken on board. And as point 3 of part A of this grant application form, you have the declaration we just spoke. So the lead applicant has to sign this declaration, and please, without changing, well, a single word. But nevertheless, it's signed and it should be applied. The name, signature, position, and date. For your information, just in point 4, you have the assessment grid that would be used to evaluate this concept note, at least on an administrative point of view. Do we have all the needed documents? Do we have everything to proceed with our evaluation? This is the point of this assessment grid. So at this stage, by the 8th of November 2016 at 4 o'clock, we should be receiving from interested entities a concept note. So the first page of this application form, the concept note itself, 5 pages, the checklist where the entities would put crosses so as to make sure that everything has been taken on board, as well as the declaration of the lead applicant. On the guidelines that we have opened here, I would like to end my presentation showing you that by the end of these guidelines, so all the information we have discussed here and much more, of course, are in these guidelines. If we go through the guidelines, we will have, particularly for this call for proposals, we will have an evaluation grid, which is this one. And the scores, what we are going to evaluate is the relevance of the action, the design of the action, and we will give a total score up to 50 points. And it will be done as shown here. How relevant is the proposals to the objectives and priorities of the co-proposers? Which priorities? The ones stated in the guidelines. How relevant the particular needs and constraints of the target group, of the target countries or region is in this proposal? How clearly defined and strategically chosen are those involved, and so on. And we will do this evaluation based on the concept note, those 5 pages. I think this concludes our presentation of this call for proposals. I would like again to stress the fact that you can find all the elements on this web page of the call for proposals. All the elements are here, and working with the European Commission has an advantage, a clear advantage, that all documents are standard. You have to open the documents, fill in, and instructions are given in the documents. Thank you very much for your time.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much to the management unit. And in fact, the unit was very helpful in preparing the document, because this is for a considerable amount, and we at times had to start again from the beginning. We had to speed up on a number of issues with the Commission. You will look at, looking at the schedule, it is our hope that some contracts can be signed no later than May, and that is quite a tight schedule, because if we were to go by the usual timetable, that would mean about a year would elapse between the launch for proposals and actual signing. But as we are in the interim waiting for appropriate support, we, with the Commission, committed to working rapidly, and so I wish to thank my colleagues in advance who have been and who are to work very hard so that we can indeed start earlier, and that would certainly be a challenge, but one that we're willing to take up. We are now ready to take questions, to give clarification. The floor is open, and you can identify yourselves. I do see that the Ambassador of Vanuatu wants to kick off. Ambassador.
Thank you for your kind words. Also, I wanted to join it to to welcome our colleagues from the Commission and Ahmed and his team from the BMU. I saw the invitation. I came to this meeting with particular interest, Chair. I am beginning to see that we now have a process where this call of proposals would begin in sometime in 8th of May. But I'd like to take you back a few steps down the track, if you permit me. The TPD TradeComII came into place 2 years late. 2 years late, if I recall. And here we are, trying to manage our time, notwithstanding the fact that some countries around the table have submitted projects to the PMU. We're still waiting when they're going to tell us the project will be implemented. My other question also, Chair, to you is whether funds are really available. Most of my colleagues around the table will be willing to know where we're going from here. The project is very ambitious. We support this. But let's get to the real fact of the matter. Countries after countries submit projects on trade-related projects. We have not got anything so far, not even in writing. I'm beginning to question the credibility of the PMU. As a senior ambassador inside this room, my government sent me here to come and represent my country and my region. It would be a remiss on my part if I'm not given enough information. I have met with the head of the unit for more than 6 times. My country has submitted more than 3 projects. Until this time, I'm disappointed we have not been given any clue as to where we're going. We'd like to support the dossier as it is. But if it's just going to be another round of discussion with less action, then I think we need to be able to beef up the effort. Because after all, come 2020, by mid-2018, all projects should have been completed. My fear is that perhaps the amount of money would never been used. And EU will say, well, guys, there's a red flag here, the time is up, you're going to be able to use it. Let's face the reality here. Let's not be able to exercise our restraint to try and entertain everybody. I think we should get to the fact of the matter. How much is at stake? How countries can be able to benefit from the project? Thank you, Mr. Ivan.
Ok, peut-être répondre rapidement à l'interrogation tout à fait légitime de M. l'ambassadeur de Vanuatu, mais aussi rappeler que nous sommes suivis en ligne par des participants qui sont disponibles pour... il y a un problème de... Est-ce que les micros sont ouverts?
Yes. I'm saying that we will try to focus and give you an answer very quickly, Ambassador. We are indeed also being monitored online. Your concern is indeed justified. There have been delays, and that is indeed why we have tried to cut the delays. And the portion you are referring to is the technical aspect, for which details were received. The process of starting off, as always, is quite lengthy. But one aspect in which we have tried to innovate is that we have sought to move as fast as possible. Normally, when a project is launched, you need to receive the projects. They need to be looked at. And normally that process takes 6 to 9 months. In this case, we have sought to work as quickly as possible. Regarding technical assistance, resources were made available by partners in August. So the resources are now available, and we are indeed prepared to make progress. So, Ambassador, we are prepared to redouble our efforts to ensure that we can work as we had planned. Mali.
I am Mrs. Traore from the Malian Embassy. I'd like to thank the presenter. And I'd just like to refer to the identification number. I don't quite understand it. How do you identify the numbers, and how do you know what your ID number is in EuropeAid? Thank you.
Je pense que nous allons répondre au fur et à mesure directement.
I think we can answer that directly and then go on to other questions.
Monsieur Lambiza, vous pouvez répondre à...
Mr. Lambiza perhaps can answer.
Bonjour, merci beaucoup pour votre question.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the question. As regards the European number, I try to go through the process with you. If you go to the ACP Secretariat's website or even a search engine and you write call for proposals, TradeCom, you will probably be linked to the web page. Right at the start, well, you are seeing my face again, otherwise I would have shown you the web page. But anyway, you have a registration form beginning with European stroke and then a number. That's the ID number for the call for proposals. That's the ID number. So we are speaking about a call for proposals which is ongoing and which was launched, in fact, here. It's European stroke 138266. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. The Ambassador of Kenya.
Thank you very much, our moderator, and let me join previous speakers, especially our Dean, on the very, very detailed presentation that has been given by the team from Trade.com. Mr. Moderator, I take the floor first to share with you our experiences with the TradeComII. Part of that was given by the Dean, but we'd like to invite your attention to what we had earlier recommended, that some of our countries, and especially my country, will have very serious difficulties putting in a proposal and being told that our consultants do not qualify because they don't have EU experience. We shall not allow them to step in my country. That is a rule that should be done away with immediately. It is not possible that you can have a rule that excludes consultants from ACP countries or specific countries on the basis that they don't have experience. It's a political matter that should be noted. Number two, if it is possible, can these deadlines be relaxed? Thinking of my country and writing back home to tell them you have deadline of 8th of November to submit a proposal or a concept, otherwise you are locked out of the process. And this is a concept that will require serious analysis for it to qualify to the next stage. And this is the time that you are telling us. Don't you think it would give us some sense of good preparation if that particular deadline would be relaxed with the consultation, of course? And then number three, we have certain opportunities for cooperation. And with the exit of BISCRIM, we are now looking at the opportunities that can come on board via this project. And it has taken a long, long time to come on stream. I did formally request the Secretary General of ACP to explain. And despite everything else, we can forget history and say, I hope we will not be caught up with a time trap, so that after a certain time we'll be told, oh, we have now 3 months to close the project, we cannot admit any new proposals. Number three and number four, I would want to know, why can't we entertain proposals for acquisition of hardware? This software, at least where we have reached for this cooperation should actually support us to acquire the hardware that we need. For example, those countries that are going to implement the new cycle of economic partnership agreements, in a few days' time, 1st of October is coming. We are surely having a fatigue of consultants. I would like somebody who would help me develop a laboratory for our exports to the EU to increase in terms of compliance. This is a trade issue. Again, you'll find that if you want to put up such a hardware-related proposal, it could possibly not go far. Can we get that assurance? Cost sharing is not a big deal. We can always cost share. But let us entertain the idea of moving away from soft paperwork and so on, but try and move into hardware. Finally, is it possible in this particular time to consider a lot of training that is targeted to attract or to capacity our negotiators and our trade experts? I would be very much interested in a process that would see young and ambitious trade negotiators and diplomats in trade being supported across the ACP, so that tomorrow we don't end up with the complaints that we are now hearing about agreements that were concluded after negotiation, and some bright fellow will one day pick up this thing and tell you, hey, you are outsmarted. Of course, you don't have any chance to revise history, but we have an opportunity now to develop that foundation and give our countries and our people a way out of the very many problems that we are having. Thank you very much.
Merci plutôt à vous, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur.
Thank you, Ambassador. Well, we leave it up to the team to answer the technical questions on eligibility, etc., and the possibility of having training for negotiators. And maybe some of the factors linked to the deadline, because we can beef that up. Some issues may not be within the technical purview of the PMU. They are more political in nature, so we're up to the Commission and myself to answer those. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Honorable Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Kenya, for the quite valuable questions. I will answer a few, and my colleague will go to some more technical issues. On the first question on the experience of our consultants having experience in Europe, I do not think that is one of the conditions. In the call for proposals here, you will find that the experience in facilitating or in implementing trade-related programs in ACP countries, and that is quite generic. Could be a company or an institution in Kenya, or could be an institution in Botswana, which has providing trade-related technical assistance facilities in those countries or in the region, or somewhere in the Pacific, somewhere in the Caribbean. And those are the ones which are being sought. The only link which has been established is here is if it's a European institution providing the same trade-related technical assistance, where is that trade-related technical assistance going? It has to be going for the beneficiaries in the ACP states. That is the condition, is it? It's not the reverse order whereby you find the Kenyans or Ethiopians having experience in Europe. No, that is not the case. If it will be the case, I think you would have already addressed it here in this room C. In that case, we give assurance that if there is applicants from Kenya, they will be evaluated and judged and considered on the basis of their experience of providing those facilities for the beneficiaries in Kenya, or for the beneficiaries in Africa, or for the beneficiaries in Pacific or in the Caribbean, as far as is concerned. The second question on the deadlines, my colleague will come on those. The reason is also which the issue has been raised by the ambassador of Vanuatu, His Excellency there, and also you raised it at the beginning, is that we have a timeline for the implementation of specific components of this particular program. And those timelines, if we do not follow them as per the guidelines of the European Commission, we may find ourselves going into an endless cycle of repetitions. And therefore, we kindly urge you and to urge also colleagues in the member states to try to, as much as possible, to follow and observe those guidelines and try to meet them as much as possible. And my colleague had explained that the first package of deadlines is only for preparation of 5 pages of the concept note. We believe that many institutions, when they are capable of delivering technical assistance, can very quickly prepare those 5 pages. And also there is an opportunity to provide the questions to the contracting authority, so that the contracting authority can also provide the additional guidelines or additional instructions or additional explanations on how those applicants should be able to respond to the call for proposal. So, Your Excellency, we kindly urge you to transmit this information for the potential applicants, that we better abide by the timeline so that we can start implementing the program as quickly as possible. And the chairman had also indicated that one. The opportunities for cooperation, yes, there are a lot of opportunities for cooperation which are coming up, and I think everyone and everybody, the TradeComII team would be very much upright to be able to utilize those opportunities to enhance cooperation. Particularly also the call proposal provides that opportunity by inviting many potential applicants from different fields who can open those opportunities for cooperation and to be able to provide the technical assistance and the support to our member states, the beneficiaries, to the benefit of the beneficiaries. Yes, the number 4 of acquisition of hardware. Possibly, I don't know whether one of our colleagues from the European Commission can answer that one, but I would like also my colleague to address one. Training, Your Excellency, that is one of the cluster or the core of the supportive programs, both under call for proposal, which is specifically mentioned, that is it support training and the research institutions. That is at the core of the support. But also the technical assistance package, which is another component which we are implementing. There is also a lot of training programs depending on the demand-driven requests which are coming in. There is a lot of training opportunities. That is also at the core, because that is to enhance the capacities of the beneficiaries to be able to participate effectively in the multilateral and the regional and the national trade opportunities. I give the floor to my colleague to answer 1 or 2 bits which are quite significant. Thank you.
Thank you, Amen. Ambassador, thank you very much for your concerns. I would like to refer that my answers or my additions are coming straight from the guidelines for applicants. So with this call for proposals, I would like to quote on page 8 of the document you have with you, that concerning applicants and co-applicants, lead applicants, what we call coordinators, who are not established in an ACP country, must have at least one co-applicant established in one of the ACP countries and be active in the field covered by this call for proposal. So the idea here was to really, within this program that is ACP Trade Capacity Building Program, the idea in this call for proposal was to bring as much as possible your concern on board. Concerning the deadline for this call for proposals, again, as in the guidelines for applicants, you will find that the deadline has been put on the 8th of November 2016. The EU procedures, the procedures we have to obey so as to be able to use these funds, imposes that at least a period of 45 days is given to applicants to submit the concept note. Well, as my team leader has mentioned, we have nevertheless been stretched quite a lot on time, and we have provided here a period which is roundly 50 days. So this is a call for proposals, and we are here in this information session. So this is concerning the deadline. Possibility to be extended. If to be extended, it should be requested by an entity who is going to apply and giving reasons for such. And this would be obviously evaluated by the PMU in support. We are supporting the ACP Secretariat as contracting authority. Concerning the acquisition of software, hardware, materials, be aware that here we are in a call for proposals, and everything depends on what is going to be submitted. The regulation states that for acquisitions that would happen within this call for proposals, we should use the procedures as it would be stated in Annex 4 of a contract. So this is what I can say concerning this issue. Concerning training and capacity on negotiations and so on, I would invite you to go to page 10 of the guideline for applicants, where you can find the main thematic issues or points that the proposals should consider. And on page 10 and 11, you can even find examples, not exhaustive, but examples of the type of intervention that could be supported. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jose. Our colleague from the European Commission, Kuhn, he will give some more responses on His Excellency's question on the acquisition of hardwares. Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I think we have to refer to the terms of reference. So if you, I don't know if you have the guidelines, Mr. Ambassador. On page 10, it refers to the type of actions. So you see that actually examples of actions which may be financed under this call are development of training and research programs, facilitation of exchange of experiences, and be the most attractive projects. Yeah, that's what we can say.
Merci. Et peut-être.
Thank you. Maybe I should point out, this is in answer to the question of extending the deadline. We are in a dilemma here. What is indicated is 45 days. We propose 50 days. We can go to 60, etc. But as you said, then we will be late for the implementation. We are open to even giving 3 months extension. We ask for the deadline to be as limited as possible because you in the member states are expecting projects. And the ambassador of Vanuatu said so, together with the ambassador of Kenya. If we wait more and we extend the period, we would end up implementing the project only in January 2018. And no one will be happy. Now, as regards the outcome of the call for proposals, we are the contracting authority in the ACP Secretariat. We work hand in hand with the European Commission and the PMU as regards the initial evaluation. It's all open. If we get to the end of the process and we see that there are not enough offers which tie in with what states expect in terms of quality, we won't give contracts just for the sake of giving contracts. We will then reopen the call proposals perhaps, but I think we are confident enough to say that we will have sound proposals, and we will then be able to use all the resources and perhaps, if necessary, ask for more in order to meet all the needs of the proposals we get. So rest assured, go on with this. We shall try as much as possible to communicate things with you, but you should not restrict yourself to forming alliances. We are aware that the amounts requested are significant enough for our institutions, from 1 to 3 million euros. There's a lot of money which is requested. 20% of 3 million. For some institutions may find that money easily. Others may have to engage in alliances in order to pool the resources and be competitive in the proposal. Let me now give the floor to the Ambassador of Grenada.
So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for recognizing us, and I want to begin by recognizing the Dean and the distinguished colleague, the Ambassador from Vanuatu. I also want to express our gratitude to the ACP for the work that you have done in collaboration with the PMU in getting us to this point. The records would reflect that the OECS, of which Grenada is a part, has been very interested in the launch of the TradeComII, particularly having regard to the 5-year review of the operation of the CARIFORUM EU-EPA and the conclusions of that, which in fact points to the need for us to focus more heavily in implementation of the agreement and the development of our capacity in that regard is a key component. I want to say that I believe that in that context, and also in the context of what has happened in the post-financial crisis period, 2008, where many of our developing countries are still struggling to get back to pre-adjustment economic growth. All of these are important components, and in that context, we take what you have said to us and the signals which emanate from this TradeComII call for proposals as working in tandem with a number of other things that are happening in our countries. In my own country, we are involved in an IMF program, and that has not allowed us to expand and to deepen our spend in institutional development. And so this is also a very useful component. So I want to, on record, say that I think the intervention is timely. I want to say that from reading the proposal, I read quickly, and I have followed your sojourns over the last several years on your prior exploits in this area, your TradeCom projects, which we have found to be useful, which we have not benefited due to no fault but our own, to the extent that we should have, because we did not participate in the process as we planned to do in this one. But we have found those to be particularly useful, and we look forward to engaging with you as the countries of the Eastern Caribbean that have signed the revised Treaty of Basseterre, establishing the economic union in that part of the Caribbean. We are looking forward to participating with you in benefiting from this line of funding, this program of funding in trade. And so not only is it timely, I want to say for the record, it's also relevant. I think that it's particularly important for us to signal that. Having regard to all of those things, we too would want to get on with the proposals as quickly as possible, and so we want to commit to the time frames that you have placed on the table. We think that in the context of an overall agreement that goes till 2020, it would be useful for us to do this in a timely fashion, and so while we too believe that it would be useful for us to signal perhaps if there is any opportunity to adjust the end dates, so that the project cycle can extend beyond 24 months. We were in our heads as we brainstormed ahead of what this could look like, and we've only just seen it. We imagined a project cycle that would run the typical 3 years, 36 months. And in our minds, as we think about institutional strengthening and reform across what is now 8 countries, 8 island states, that would of course conform more to the way in which we deliver and have delivered in the past our project assistance. But failing that, I want to assure you that if what we can reach consensus on by virtue of the mandates that you may have placed around this, or which you may have had placed on you, if that time frame is 24 months, that 24 months is the project cycle. And so we're prepared to work within the ambits of what we have before us without pressing for any further delays, which we believe could cause us to get to the end of this this agreement that we have with the European Union without the benefit of getting some of these things delivered. And so we too are in a hurry. In relation to what's been presented today, I want to say that's been fairly clear, very clear. And we are encouraged by the fact that the documentation appears to be all standardized, and there are only 3 things left for us to request of you. And the first one would be an explanation of your page 11, which talks about short-term technical assistance and studies provided on a demand-driven basis. And the specific question here is the contemplation that in the call for proposals, as you identify the broad contours of what this project would look like, that you think about this as call down expertise for studies, something as nefarious as that. If you said call down expertise for studies, it would then allow us, no matter what happens, to essentially draw down under this budget line, under this project subcomponent for the studies that emerged? Or is it that in the project contemplation, there is going to be a need to come back to the contracting party when those specific studies are identified? So two very different options. One option is that you have the resources, and as you need it, for instance, we've just commissioned a small study on Brexit. We hadn't planned this, of course, 6 months ago, but it's become important. And so this Brexit study, if we had a line of funding which talks about demand-driven technical assistance and studies, we could essentially use some resources for this. Or is it that we would then have to come back to you, option 2, and say, look, we want to use some of that for a Brexit study, if you can clarify that. So I just get a sense of what the entire cycle is looking like. That's the first question. I think the second question really comes in terms of clarification from something that that was pointed to later. Great. The second issue comes from the monitoring and evaluation. If you could just talk us through in 2 minutes what that would look like. Is it ongoing monitoring and evaluation? Are you building it into some of the activities? Just give us a brief exposition on what that would look like. And the third one, I did say 3. The third one comes from page 16 of your document. Just for clarification and for the avoidance of any doubt, under concept note content 2.2.1, subparagraph 1, the last sentence of the first paragraph, which of course starts within the concept note, I'm referring specifically to the sentence which says a detailed budget is to be submitted only by the lead applicants invited to submit a full application in the second phase. When I read this, because I'm not perhaps intimate with your project cycles, I'm left wondering whether I am to do a detailed budget now as part of the concept note, or whether I'm to do a detailed budget only in phase 2. It makes it a little ambiguous. If you can clarify that for me. Should I do it now as part of the concept note, or should I do it in phase 2? If you can clarify that, that'd be very useful. Again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to have benefited from this. I think it's useful, and be assured that all our countries are at idem with you in moving forward swiftly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. May I request the PMU to respond, please?
Thank you, sir, for your questions. Concerning the short-term technical assistance and studies provided on demand-driven basis, this I'm reading on page 11 of the guidelines. This depends on the action to be proposed. The procedures to be used to call for this demand-driven short-term technical assistance, let's say, we have to evaluate it on the proposal presented on this call for proposals. So here are some examples. I just felt eventually a bit of a confusion, not on you, but at least on my side, just to make sure that we distinguished, even in this session, 2 parts, which is the implementation of the TradeCom program based on demand-driven activities, which is on the program estimate. This is something where we have been receiving requests for assistance, requests for technical assistance from the different countries and eligible organizations, from this call for proposal that is entirely launched by the ACP Secretariat, and on which, on page 11, you can find examples, not exhaustive, as our colleague Kun has mentioned, of activities that could be more developed, meaning it has to be developed, and it's based on the proposal, it's based on how the implementation of that proposal. Concerning the detailed budget, at this stage, as I mentioned on my presentation, we are only going to look at concept notes. And in the concept note, there will be an indication, as we saw on the first few pages, on the first page actually, there will be an indication of the budget. Of course, to have a budget, you have to do, as an applicant, you have to do a less detailed budget, a less global budget somewhere, but the detailed budget is to be presented during the second phase. So at this stage, we are only expecting to receive the front page of the application, the 5 pages of the concept note, the checklist, so as to make sure that you would have reviewed and include the needed documents for us to review this concept note, and the declaration of the applicant. Concerning the monitoring and evaluation, I'm afraid I didn't see where did you quote it on the On which page were you?
No, I was just asking you if you could give us a sense, not just on the concept, but very roughly about how you actually. Sorry. No, it hasn't arisen from your presentation. I was just asking you to give us a snippet on the notion of monitoring and evaluation, whether it's continuous, whether it's going to be at the end of the project. For many of your colleagues in this room, this may be an elementary question, but for many of us working with you on this for the first time, we just want to get a sense of your construct. How have you built in monitoring and evaluation? Because we hadn't mentioned it at all this morning.
Thank you very much. Well, the monitoring and evaluation, so to follow the implementation of this grant, of the grant to be awarded, it will be awarded through a grant contract. And how the monitoring and how are we going to support the ACP Secretariat as contracting authority, the implementation of this grant contract is actually mentioned in the grant contract, which you have as annex in the list of documents that you have there. So this monitoring will be technical monitoring and as well financial monitoring for the organizations that will be provided financial support. So it's in the grant contract, the standard grant contract, as well as on the general conditions and so on. Thank you.
Ok, merci. Nous allons passer.
Thank you. We now would like to hear from the representative from Burkina Faso. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And like previous speakers, I'd like to thank you and also the management unit for their brilliant presentation. My question is to clarify what happens when a request for assistance is submitted. We have projects that were sent out from the capital and they are still awaiting feedback. Could these projects be reconsidered for submission in this call? According to guidelines, or indeed, what is the difference between the two procedures? We would need that information in order to brief our capital. Thank you.
Non, merci. Je pense.
Thank you. I believe, with respect to details relating to a specific project, that for such information you could approach the Secretariat and discuss it with them bilaterally. We may not have the requisite information to answer now, but then if certain proposals were not considered initially, you would have to be careful because there may be differing approaches and differing characteristics. So generally for technical exercises, they are not so lengthy. But then if you have projects that are eligible for a technical assistance, which could then be resubmitted, in our view, there are two different approaches here. Calls for technical assistance are normally for short times to assist in preparing for a specific event or process, whereas here we are more working in terms of promoting capacity for the long term. So certainly you can approach us to understand whether your request would indeed be considered. I would now like to hear from the representative of SAPROLEV or COLE ACP.
Yes, Hilary Barry from COLE ACP. My question is relating to the co-financing and what is the European Union expecting in terms of the origin of the co-financing? Must this come from the beneficiary states or regions that could benefit from this long-term technical assistance or training? Are there any conditionalities on the origin other than it being non-European Union and being non-profit making if it comes from the private sector? And my other question is related to the guidelines. I think it's on page 12, and we talk about an envelope of financial support per third party. This is under financial support to third parties, and we talk about a maximum amount of 60,000 euros. If you could explain a little bit more how you expect this financing to be used, especially given the question from the ambassador from Kenya, who said that no hard support could be financed. Can we have more details on that, please? Thank you.
On the co-financing, can the EC reply?
Okay. Or you want to reply on the co-finance?
The source of grant and co-financing.
I think we are guided by the terms of reference, by the guidelines, and I think there's a clear reference somewhere on the balance must be financed from sources other than the European Union budget or the European Development Fund, which is the Article 1.3, the last paragraph. Then it also says where a grant is financed by the European Development Fund, any mention of EU financing must be understood as referring to EDF funding. So basically, there's no specific condition mentioned here beyond this, unless you would find something in the guidelines. Yeah. Then there was another question. 60,000. Oh yes, 60,000. Yeah. 60,000. This is sub-granting. This is about sub-granting. 12. Okay. Yeah. So financial support to third parties. So it could be that you have a grant, and within the grant you would like to sub-grant to another grantee. So there's the limit of 60,000 that you can do it within, let's say, these conditions here. So it depends of the design of your project. For example, you could have a project where you would like to disseminate smaller grants. You know, this would be the limits per third party, 60,000. Yeah.
Okay, I might need to be a little bit more specific there. You said that, is this just on soft skills? If it's a sub-grantee that it's a training of trainers, where then the institute that we are supporting or the Bureau of Standards we are supporting, that they are going on to do further training, and then the 60,000 would cover that? Or could that be used for, as the Kenyan ambassador said, equipping that Bureau of Standards or that trade negotiation body or export body in terms of hard material?
Thank you for your question. Yes. Well, concerning sub-granting, and I would like to bring and make reference to the question raised by Burkina Faso as well. For a service contract, for instance, we know exactly what we are looking for. We were able to make terms of reference. Des termes de référence ont été établis. And in that sense, we launch a tender and we identify the best proposal, technical and financial proposal, and we award a contract. In a grant, the idea is different. Instead of trying to find the best one for these terms of reference, we're doing the other way. We state the overall objective, the specific objective, the thematic points, and we want to award as many grants as we can. Now, why am I saying that? Because I will repeat, it depends on your proposal. What you read here on page 12 is you have the possibility in your proposal to have a component of subgranting. Per subgrant, you should not exceed 60,000 euros. It's not supposed to be the main purpose of the grant you have requested, or else we would follow in such a thing as almost like another PMU. We're a bit jealous of our work. So this is what I can tell you about a subgranting. You have examples here in page, I think, 11 that show you the type of activities. Unfortunately, or fortunately for us, in this same document, it is stated that during the clarification, we cannot commit saying your example is a good example or not a good example, or you are an eligible institution or not. So clearly answering to your question is sponsoring a training, yes or no? Well, thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathleen from ECDPM. I had two small questions. One, given indeed the broad objective and the ultimately limited funds, I didn't see much reference to fostering intra-regional cooperation, and I was just wondering whether that is an objective. Certainly, given the amounts, I mean the minimum amount of 1 million, I would assume that that's something important, but I just wanted to get the sense of whether you say, well, actually, yes, that would be a plus, whether it is within African regions or across the ACP. And then secondly, I had a bit of a difficulty understanding your point on page 12 and 13 about the being able to take part in various grants, because it says somewhere that you can submit more than one application, and as a lead applicant you can also be a co-applicant, but you cannot be in more than 2 applications under the call for proposals. I was just trying to understand there what the rules and regulations were on that front. Thank you.
Peut-être que pendant que
Perhaps while the PMU prepares to answer the second question, on the first question regarding inter-regional resource relations, I do see that as one of the priorities we have set for ourselves regarding grants that are intended to sustain or strengthen not just North-South cooperation, but also South-South and intra-ACP cooperation. So clearly, we would be happy to have proposals from across regions. Let me now give the floor to the management unit to respond to the second part of the question.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Regarding the submission by the applicant, the number of submissions, as you can see in the guidelines, what you have here is what is applicable for this particular call for proposals. it is indeed something that should be considered. What is applicable in this call for proposals is what we see in the text. Having said that, if the contracting entity, the ACP Secretariat, decides to review that position, that will be done and may be clarified if need be. I also want to point out it is very important that you should keep up with updates on our webpage, because any clarifications or changes to the guidelines would be published for the sake of transparency in the same way as the original call for proposals. So I would invite you to monitor that page. This meeting's report here in ACP House will also be published in order to ensure transparency and fair treatment. Thank you.
Okay, so WIPO, is it?
Thank you, WIPO.
WIPO, and then we come back to the, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to your team for the succinct presentations. Paul Regis from the World Intellectual Property Organization. My question pertains to section 2.1, where lead applicants not located in ACP countries need to have a co-applicant that is actually a member of an ACP country. And in that context, where the lead applicant is an international organization, is section 2.1.1 going to be enforced?
Yes, our colleague from WIPO, the answer is coming in a minute. Yes.
Well, perhaps eventually not to have you waiting for the answer. You have the possibility to submit a request for clarification within the 21 days before the deadline, so we are still on time. I do believe, if I remember well, it's by the 18th of October 2016. And the answer to that question will be duly posted. So it's very important.
Thank you very much.
Avant de venir ici, je vais retourner.
Let me perhaps take a few speakers from this side, including the ambassador of Vanuatu, followed by the ambassador of Kenya and Grenada, and then we will come back to the other side of the room. Speaker's microphone.
With great interest. I understand the focus now is on this grant application. That is very clear. My simple question is, since we have the BMU with us, the technical assistance projects that we've submitted over the last few months, where were these states? Have they been considered? Are they going to be implemented at all? That's my first question. Secondly, I know that this program requires a lot of paperwork, very detailed and cumbersome, complex. I'm just thinking loud and clear whether there are opportunities for the PMU to sell this product to our region, apart from ambassadors here. At the end of the day, the constituencies here are those who benefit are those from the region of ACP. And thirdly, through USG, I'd like to call on the PMU to remain engaged with the ACP countries in Brussels. When you submit projects, you expect them to come back to you in writing and to let you know what is the state of play in the process. I think that is something I'd like to register. But I'm looking forward to getting close cooperation with Ahmed and his team. And I wish them all the success in his endeavor. Merci.
Merci, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur.
Thank you, Ambassador. Rest assured, while we launch the call, technical assistance does continue, but as we move forward with programming requests, this information will be published on the PMU's website. But apart from that, we have committed to maintain contact with applicants, and this was borne out by the mention made by the Burkina Faso representative. So you would be provided with more information on your applications, and we endeavor to ensure that any gaps are filled. Information will be published online and would be available. It would remain and be available. You would still be able to follow up on certain applications, even if the information was not available on time. So that information would be available for a long period. Ambassador of Kenya, you had an additional question.
Yeah, thank you very much, ASG and the team. I just wanted to draw your attention that my country has worked very closely with the core ACP, and we have very good stories to tell. We need to move beyond there and create the real impact that we are all looking for, to combat underdevelopment, to assist the poor, and bring them quickly into the global trading system. And that is why we felt that if there is an opportunity to move into hardware, and I'll give you an example. Why can't we be very explicit and say we'll be able to support the establishment of laboratories and chemicals for the poor women who are growing the green beans that you had today for breakfast? We would want to increase our share of such exports to the EU. Those are the kind of examples that we are looking for. I'm happy to hear that WIPO is here. We are very welcome to talk to them so that we can develop a solid proposal together to get us into this EPA. We are not interested in having an EPA that will leave us where we were on the same spot. And then lastly, Chair, the Dean has raised a very, very important proposal. Can the PMU move to the regions? Can they come to East Africa? Kenya has its gates open. You come to the EAC, it's one of the most advanced economic groups. We'll receive you to talk to our people. But now with this deadline, I hope there will be that flexibility. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur.
Thank you, Excellency. Indeed, we have heard your appeal, and we can confirm that for those who sometimes travel on Brussels airlines, they sometimes are able to view a video which actually shows some of the results garnered in the context of Call ACP's activities. So we would try to work closely with the region and to be even clearer in the call for proposals. There was a question on here after Grenada.
Chair, thank you very much. Again, very, very useful discussions, and I just wanted to place two things back to you for definitive pronouncement, to the extent that we can have that. I don't mean to put you in the hot seat, but let me tell you that we've listened to the responses because we are here to learn but also to take away the learnings from our attendance of this meeting. And for the avoidance of doubt, I'm going to repeat what we've learned so that we're clear. I too had in my own question in round one, which I omitted having regard to your very clear response, a question about whether hardware attaching to a proposal that is a capacity building proposal, not for hardware's sake, but which essentially emerges out of that. One of my big issues in the Caribbean is that I don't have the trade policy capacity, nor do I have the trade policy infrastructure. And that's well documented. It's island states, their dispute, etc. There are some hardware needs that speak to my institutional capacity building directly. They can't be decoupled. My understanding from reading your guidelines and your exposition earlier is that there's nothing in the guidelines that debars us from presenting that as part of a comprehensive proposal. That's the way that we've received it, and I just wanted to place that there for the avoidance of doubt. Secondly, the dear colleague on the other side raised the matter of regional integration, which is why I begun by saying that we have to look at this in context. And the 5-year review in the case of the Caribbean, of the CARIFORUM, places before us some very strong conclusions, one of which is that we've not moved very far on the regional integration pillar. And your very clear exposition this morning, which is why I place it before the chairman again for the second time, is your exposition says that this list before you is non-exhaustive, which means that regional integration, to the extent that I link it into a credible proposal, at least will be received. It's certainly not ultra vires. It's not outside the boundaries of what we are discussing. I wanted to place those two for the avoidance of any doubt, Chairman, to you, so that we can get abundant clarity on it as we move from this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, this is a tender procedure on which we have to obey to certain laws, not certain, but for sure what is written here in the guidelines. And I want to be able to say and to state here that our support to the ACP Secretariat on this process is to ensure transparency, equal treatment, and so on. So again, I have some difficulties to say yes or no on proposals of activities and so. On this side of the table, you heard me earlier taking that statement. But I can repeat the fact that as long as you are within the priorities stated in the guidelines, and I'm always coming to the guidelines, as long as you are in the priorities there, and you will be evaluated by certain criteria that are again on this guideline, as long as you are within these guidelines, one can imagine that it's needed, or you cannot dissociate from the action that is proposed, the purchase or of services, materials, or works. Nothing here says that it's not eligible, as far as I can read now. So it depends on the action that you are proposing, and during the implementation of the grant, should the grant be awarded to such an entity, you have to obey by the grant contract, and especially its Annex 4, who says for purchasing equipment, for the use of required services and so on, those are the regulation of procurement. So this is what I wanted to say concerning, or eventually concerning your first observation, without disregarding anyone else earlier. Regional integration, I think I will let it to my team leader to further develop, but I do remember very well in the guidelines. Okay, thank you.
Well, we still have some 15 minutes to complete the session. Yes, lady here, and then I have Cameroon, and next to Cameroon. And that's it.
Thank you, Alice from the Fair Trade Advocacy Office. I wanted to ask a couple of clarification. The first one is at page 10 of the guidelines. They say where it's written, actions must take place in at least one of the ACP countries. However, if duly justified, certain activities may take place in another country, EU member state, provided that these activities are a minor part of the action. But then I also see that the lead applicant can be based in the EU. This means that the project management can be done in a new country, but then all the other activities should be taking place in a partner country. Is it correct this way? This was the first clarification that I wanted to ask, if the project management is considered part of the main activities of the project or not. The second clarification concerns the slide eligible applicants, but one of the slides that were presented, where it's written that the eligible applicant needs to be able to demonstrate having carried out activities in the field of trade-related assistance. This is an experience that the lead applicant has to show, or even a co-applicant can have this experience and not the lead applicant. And then could you please give some examples of these activities? Are these activities training, studies, or what are other kind of activities that can show this experience? Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for your question, and I'll ask my colleague to respond to the two questions. Yes.
Thank you very much. Concerning, I will start by the third one. Concerning examples of activities, please refer to page 11 and 12 of the guidelines, where you have a set of examples. I would like to recall that this is a call for proposals, and it's not a tender for services. So within the priorities and within the specific objective, it is for you to present proposals. If we knew exactly what we would like, we would then go for a service contract. So I'm unable to provide you more examples than those that are non-exhaustive and indicative in the guidelines. Concerning the actions to be taken in the ACP countries, well, the final beneficiary there. You nevertheless mentioned the PMU. Let's say a project management unit, can it be here or there? I cannot pronounce too much on that, but I have some doubts that the activities to be carried on would be mainly a project management unit. So this was my reflection. The other one, eligibility of applicant, I didn't follow, sorry. And I do believe that my colleague from the European Commission will explore more on that. Thank you.
For the co-applicants, please refer to page 8, where they say co-applicants must satisfy the eligibility criteria as applicable to the lead applicant himself. So it's basically similar conditions.
Ok, on a Young Professional Cameroun et puis la dame à côté du Cameroun.
Young Professionals Cameroon, and then the lady next to Cameroon.
Merci.
Well, thank you. Given the time constraints, let me refer to the dissemination of information. Unless my memory fails me, TradeCom would have to introduce or outline the program in our regions. I don't know whether something has already been done along those lines. On the specific call for proposals, could the information be disseminated in major regional meetings if necessary. There are major trade meetings taking place at a regional level, and maybe the PMU can give that information to those meetings, given the fact that our countries need capacity building, yes, but they are not sufficiently involved in programs of this type. Not only because the technical issues and the procedures are complicated, but also because there's a very tight schedule and a tight deadline. So maybe the PMU can make an effort to better disseminate the information to the regions and our states, either through employers associations or through ministries. There are major regional meetings, and you can have a timetable of those meetings. For the Central African region, for example, Cameroon is willing to give a timetable of such meetings. My final concern relates to this. Are the EU national regional delegations in the know about the information so that they can help disseminate it? If that is not the case, I think they should be briefed. Given the tight schedule, they can relay the information at their level to the regions and our states, so that the recipients can be well informed and have a possibility of responding to the call for proposals. Thank you. Thank you. Let me just answer the question in part, and my colleague from the Commission can answer relating to the EU delegation, and the PMU can answer relating to dissemination of information. The PMU was in the regions, in several capitals, in launching the program. And that's why it took a bit of time, because we had to go to the various recipients and spread information about the programs. We tried as far as possible to check that the activity would take place in parallel with the major regional meetings where regional organizations are headquartered. But we continue to disseminate the available information. I think that in the context of their participation in this meeting, the PMU has been able to have a list of contact people in the various regions, and in that way they can relay the information. As regards the call for proposals itself, it's an activity which is limited in time, and we didn't plan sending missions in the field for two reasons: because the schedule is so tight that the PMU would not have the time to sensitize opinion in all the regions and in time. So there was a launch, and we did have that meeting with the possibility of everyone having access to the information. But the second reason, which is in most people's minds, which is linked to what member states understand. That is, a team should be here so they can work on the service contracts and the technical assistance which is here. We have received over 200 requests, so there's work to be done. There are 200 requests to be processed. We are trying to group some together. Some are too small. They have to be grouped together. There's much work to be done here. So we deliberately decided to keep things here in order to work on them and find the most practical way of disseminating information. But obviously, what is published online today will be sent to the contacts in the various regions. So inform them of the proposals and also inform them of what is coming out of this meeting. But maybe the Commission can answer relating to the EU delegations in our countries. Thank you.
Oui, effectivement, il y a eu...
Yes, indeed. An email was sent to all EU delegates relating to the call for proposals. And we hope that this information session will serve as a trigger for everyone to pass on information to their relevant authorities. In that way, we would have a number of good candidates for the projects. So we have been trying to disseminate the information as widely as possible. We are trying to work quickly, and I think we're on the right track. Yes. The lady at the end.
As you. Thank you. Jentel Williams, President of the ACP Young Professionals Network and researcher at the University of Ghent. My question's really brief, actually. It's just regarding your intentions after this meeting. Do you intend to circulate the list of participants to facilitate networking and possible partnerships that can happen? I know this has happened in other EU institutional meetings of the similar genre that I've attended. And if you haven't considered it, I would suggest that you do consider doing so when you send the report of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for your observation. Within this procedure, we intend really to promote transparency, equal treatment, and publication of all the information needed. So the minutes of this meeting, the clarification that will be provided, that we have said that it will be provided on time, will be published on the website as I showed you where to find the information. An annex to this report or minutes will be, of course, the list of attendance on this at this meeting. And this list of attendance, well, you will see the name, the organization, email, contacts, and so on. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Valeria D'Amiconia. I represent the Global Share Alliance, which is an industry association working in West Africa. I would like to ask a clarification about the evaluation grid, page 21. It's stated that a score of 5 will only be allocated if the proposal specifically addresses more than the required minimum number of priorities. But I couldn't see this minimum number of priorities. I don't know if it's mentioned before section 1.2. Then I also would like to have a confirmation about the in-kind contributions. Even if they are quantified, they cannot be considered as matching funds. Is it correct? And also, which is the role you envisage for the governments and ministries in this kind of actions? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your points. Concerning the priorities that are stated in page 5, well, we have quoted the four priorities of the TradeCom program for this call for proposal. The minimum number of priorities that have to be addressed, well, what I see is that later on we provide on page 10 the thematics areas to which this call for proposals or the proposals should address. I do think that after internal work with the ACP Secretariat as Contracting Authority, we will clarify much better the number of priorities that minimum should be addressed. Concerning the in-kind contribution, as far as this call for proposals and as far as what is public, and what is public is the regulation, yes, in-kind contribution is not to be considered as a financial contribution. This is part of the, let's say, 20%. What is an in-kind contribution? You have the definition in this guidelines, and it has to be directly linked to the action to be implemented. Concerning the role and involvement of government and ministries, I do think that perhaps one of my technical colleagues can take over from here.
I think the role of governments and the ministries are the same as the role of applicants. If a ministry wants to put up some resources in order to back up their proposal, I mean, like Minister of Trade. I mean, Minister of Trade can also be part of the consortium that could be eligible for application, as long as there is a clear indication of what their role is and what they are going to do. But in many cases, you will find that government departments would simply not qualify because they are not providing training and research and the capacity building as such and so forth. So if they are not doing that, it will be a little bit difficult for them to be considered as part of the consortium for application. But for policy making, I think the governments can always support the process and engage your partners, mobilize the partners to come together and make a good proposal and so on and so forth. They can provide that stimulus. Thanks.
Je pense que nous avons pris toutes les questions.
Well, I think we've gone around the table. We, in fact, this meeting, in fact, went beyond the time allocated to it. We thought we would end at 5 p.m., but I've seen that there were very, very pertinent questions, and people seem to be enthusiastic about the project. I think it's a good sign. We see how we can answer further questions given the interest shown in the matter. I thank you for coming and attending this meeting. Don't be afraid to go through the document in detail. If you have further questions, you have until the 18th of October to put your request in writing and the indicated address, and we'll answer those questions. And the reply to each individual request will be publicized so that we are as transparent as possible. Thank you and have a good afternoon.